Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very 17th...
18th.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very 18th episode of Cool Down Timer. I am one of your hosts, Neefu. With me today, I have Zingallsartman.
I'm gonna punch an elf.
No, it's not Punch an Elf. Get it right, man. I changed it like seven
times. Beer.
Kobolds and beer. And in the frozen wastelands of Alaska, fearing the Kuchtaka, we have Mark Hamilton.
That's me.
Anyway, I'm not really Neefu.
No.
I'm Neefu for those of you who, this is your first episode. So
I feel sorry for them. If it's your first episode, don't. Go to a different one. You can come back to this one later.
Okay, so one of my favorite games that I played last year was XCOM. And XCOM starts off with this little phrase.
Oh, I love that little line.
Of either we are alone in the universe.
There are only two possibilities.
Oh, yeah, there are two possibilities. We are either alone in the universe or we are not. And both are equally frightening. And that, I don't know, man. That's
a good line.
It's a great line. But it opens up that speculation of like whether or not there's like
As a quote.
aliens, which leads us into the topic of
Sasquatch!
we talked about Sasquatch.
No, I'm kidding.
Cryptozoology.
We're actually recording this directly after our last episode. So Neefu and I are just as ridiculously hyper as we were last time. But we decided that we wanted to talk about some cryptozoology, especially since Mark Hamilton, being who he is, knows a lot about it.
On cryptozoology.
Oh, you flatter me.
And I actually am really interested in it. I'm not saying that I believe in it. I just think it's really interesting.
You don't believe in aliens?
Believe in the aliens among us.
Here's my thing, though. I'm actually exactly what Mark said last episode.
You're alien apathetic or alien agnostic.
Don't
That's
hurt yourself. Yeah, I'm basically like I don't know. If they're there, I really hope they don't try to kill us. If they're not there, I don't care.
Well, C.S. Lewis once said that there's only two possible results if we meet aliens. If we're more powerful than them, we will treat them like the Native Americans were treated by the settlers. If they're more powerful than us, then we should hope that they're nicer than us, but we'll probably be destroyed.
But yeah, so that happened. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about cryptozoology, Mark.
Well, cryptozoology is about filling out the little empty corners of the biological map. Oh, who am I kidding? It's about hunting monsters. No, it's great. Cryptids, as they're called, are things like Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, a few other oddities, and they're neat. I love them because they're like modern-day monster legends. Back in the old days, it'd be dragons,
I love dragons.
People would be taught about St. George and the dragon, and they'd say, Grandpa, are there really dragons? And they'd say, well, it's hard to find them these days, but they're out there.
And nowadays we get things like the jackalope. Wah, wah, wah.
Wow, that was pretty good. You sounded like an instrument.
I've done sound effects for our stupid films with my mouth that sounded equally as good.
But now the jackalope is a known hoax, but it's more stuff like Sasquatch, That's one of the big names. The Yeti.
There's a couple silly ones that Moth Man and the Jersey Devil.
Oh, Moth Man is just crazy silly. Mothman's an interesting subject on its own. I'm not going to even talk about it here. You can look it up. But the Jersey Devil is especially interesting.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, do you want to describe it? You describe it for our folks here.
Here's the thing. So a while back, I got randomly interested in cryptozoology, and I did a little bit of research on it. And I've heard a ton of different descriptions of what the Jersey Devil is, where he came from, what he looks like, all these different things. And they're all completely different, and they're all ridiculous. So I have this very this is the most ridiculous of all the monsters view on it, where when I brought it up to you, you were like, the Jersey Devil's crazy. And I was like, what? Because my experience with it was he's kind of lame.
Well, he's crazy in two ways. The first way is that he is pretty lame when it comes to description of him. It's always different. It's always like, what, half horse, half nonsense. It's a nonsense creature. See if you can find a description of it. But the story, at least my favorite story, I think the best story, arguably, of where the Jersey Devil came from is really interesting in my mind. It's the story goes that in the 17 or 1800s, I can't remember which, there was a lady who was married to a guy, and the guy wanted to have a lot of kids. And these were back in the days where if you were a woman, your job was to squat out the babies, you know? And she was tired of having this guy's kids. He had like 10 kids, and she was pregnant again. So she basically said that she made a deal with the devil, sort of, kind of nonchalantly, that she wished this would be the last. She would give this kid to the devil as long as it's her last kid. And when she gave birth, this hideous monster comes out, and the hideous monster eats her, eats her husband, eats all the other kids, and that's where the Jersey Devil comes from.
Okay, so here's the description that they have on Wikipedia. Often described as a flying biped with hooves, but there are many different variations. Common description is that of a kangaroo-like creature with the head of a goat, leathery bat-like wings, horns, small arms, and clawed hands, cloven hooves, and a forked tail. It's been reported to move quickly and often is described as emitting a blood-curdling scream.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Kangaroo with a goat's head. But what's really neat is in the 1800s, there was a mass hysteria event where a rather large posse of militiamen and just general guys with guns chased the Jersey Devil across several states. This is a real event that happened. Men and women got together with the guns and believed they were chasing the Jersey Devil for days across several states.
Good lord. Okay, sorry. Neefu just got the hiccups really, really bad. Like can't speak bad.
Neefu's a cryptid.
You can tell if I'm laughing or if I'm hiccuping.
You're hiccuping. Anyway,
Well,
continue.
it's really interesting.
No, and I thought that was really interesting when I read that, because that's like kind of like, what? Something happened.
But the Jersey Devil, I think, is pretty obviously not real. I mean, there's supposed to be just one of them.
Right.
You know, it's ridiculous. But it's not the most ridiculous cryptid I've ever heard of.
What's the most ridiculous one you've ever heard of besides Mothman?
That's easy. BatSquatch.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
BatSquatch is Bigfoot with bat wings.
Oh, gosh.
And sometimes he has laser eyes. That's BatSquatch. Take all the unbelievableness of Bigfoot, which is at least plausible, you know. Somewhat.
Laser wings and bat.
And
that's
add
Superman
laser
with
eyes and bat wings.
So I don't actually know much. What exactly is a Wendigo? Is that basically just a freaking Bigfoot?
Well, according to Supernatural and X-Men, it's an evil spirit that arrives after somebody partakes in cannibalism.
You know what? You're not far off.
The issue of X-Men, like the two issues of X-Men before these days of Future Past.
Sorry, that'll get rid of your hiccups. They're gone now. Nope, they're not gone.
the issues of X-Men that took right before the days of Future Past. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off there. Wendigos, they're in X-Men. How about that? Well, the actual Wendigo, it comes from Native American legend. It's basically a catch-all monster that's going to eat you kids if you don't behave properly.
Oh, this is the cannibal guys that turn into
and
crazy monsters.
And they like eat kids, but they also turn kids into Wendigos. It's complicated, you know?
Like most cryptids.
And
it's an Indian legend.
That's more of a legend than a cryptid. I don't think anyone seriously believes the Wendigo really exists. Some interesting cryptids are the...
Right.
I'm not going to pronounce this right, but it's like the Mokele-Mbembe, which is like a dinosaur living somewhere in the Congo. A lot of reports of that. And just interesting things where like people will ask the natives what the Mokele-Mbembe looks like, and then they pull out these like pictures of a brontosaurus, like these drawings, and they'll say, yeah, looks
I've
just
heard of
like
that
that.
one. There's
some dispute about that because apparently some people took out other pictures of things like rhinos and stuff, and they said the same thing. But it's hard to tell.
Picture of a flower. Yeah, it's that. Picture of a panda. No, not that one. Picture of a skunk. It's that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell in the world of cryptozoology who's giving you the straight dope, as it were, and who isn't.
Right.
There's basically something like a giant flying lizard thing. I wish I could remember its name, that some cowboys saw back in the cowboy days.
That's right. Giant flying lizard.
Yeah, there's the skunk apes.
I'm gonna wiki giant flying lizard.
Skunk apes down in the south. They're like a southern version of Sasquatch. They're big, they stink. Only they have a couple of extra southern features, including glowing red eyes and bulletproofness.
Ah,
Yes.
handy.
Gotta love myths.
And then there's the classics. What's interesting is when a cryptid turns out to be real.
Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, it's happened a few times, like the Okapi in Africa.
What's an Okapi?
That was believed to be a purely legendary creature until someone found its skin being sold and asked the guy where he found them, and
So
they're
what is
real.
this? I've actually never heard of this one.
Okay, the Okapi is kind of like an antelope, but it's got zebra stripes on its legs.
Oh.
It's got zebra coloration on its legs. The rest of it's normal. People thought it was just a legend,
Right.
Just made up. An antelope with zebra legs, but it's totally real. It's a real animal.
Crazy looking animal.
Another less exciting one, but still a cryptid that turned out to be real, was a type of tree kangaroo that was recently discovered in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Tree kangaroos, as it turns out, are a real thing. There have been reports of this creature for a long time, but no scientific evidence. So it had cryptid status, and they discovered a couple years ago.
That
Totally
thing is
real.
freaking adorable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is the most cute little animal I have ever seen.
So it's just fascinating that there's this field where you got
cute.
you got plausible things that sometimes turn out to be real, like the tree kangaroo and the Okapi, and you also have in the same category things like BatSquatch and the Jersey Devil. It's a fascinating field to
Please
study.
go away, please go. I hate. stupid
Yeah,
hiccups.
I don't know. I'm kind of up there with you, where it's just like, just that idea, just the modern day myths and legends, is fun.
I love the ones about dragons. Like
Yeah.
how like a lot of ancient
Oh yeah,
cultures
it's the
had,
same with
like-
vampires though. Like all the cultures had either vampires or werewolves or both. I don't remember, but there's a lot of monsters that have been in like every culture, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting. Pretty interesting stuff. I learned some dragon legends recently that I hadn't heard before.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Though I was disillusioned. I finally looked up the story of St. George and the Dragon. Because that's something you always hear about, vaguely mentioned, but I never actually...
We might need to take after the story. We might need to take a 10-second break.
Okay.
Let me figure out how to get rid of these stupid hiccups.
They're really bad. Keep going, Mark.
All I knew is that he killed a dragon that was eating ladies.
Right.
And there's a hill in
not nice.
England that they claim it's called Dragon Hill. They say that's where he killed it because there's a patch on the hill where grass doesn't grow. And they say that's where he killed the dragon. Here's the thing, though. St. George never set foot in England.
Oh really? Yeah.
He lived in the Middle East. He was one of the guards of the Roman Empire, of the Eastern Roman Empire. I don't think he ever went farther north than Turkey. And the dragon he was supposed to kill was somewhere in the Middle East. And somehow he becomes the patron saint of England. I don't know how that happens.
Huh.
So while I can't say whether or not he actually killed a dragon, he definitely didn't do it on Dragon Hill unless he has teleportation powers as well.
Well, maybe he does.
Maybe dragons teleport when threatened. And he was holding on to the dragon's back.
Well, dragons are awesome.
Teleported to England.
Freaking winged.
It'd be like that new Thor movie.
Dragons are cool.
Where they're teleporting.
I haven't seen that one yet.
In a big fight scene, they keep teleporting
Yes.
while they fight, and it's pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. Dragons, they're cool. I don't know. And then there's also some really neat werewolf legends.
Has Neefu recovered yet?
No, he's currently, I think he's holding his breath and beating himself.
Is he slowly suffocating? Will we?
These are some pretty bad hiccups.
Will it say on his coroner's report, death by hiccup?
It should. It definitely should. You know, if he dies.
And at his funeral, everyone will say, I'm not surprised. I always knew it would be something stupid that got him in the end. Something stupid and normally harmless.
So, Mark, off subject, but what's your favorite mythological creature? That's kind of on subject, I guess, but back to the subject. Dragon. Neefu says dragon.
Dragons are pretty impressive, I must say.
They are.
I have studied a lot of myths, though, so it's kind of like I have to go through my head quite a bit, you know? Ugh.
Yeah. Don't want to pick anything too mainstream, do you?
Yeah, I want to be unique.
Dragons are pretty neat.
Yeah.
There's also, like I said, some really neat werewolf legends. Like the ones where they have to, like, make a coat out of the...
Yeah, that's a real classic
robe out of a werewolf.
And
I like that.
One way to kill a werewolf was to steal his coat.
Right.
And then on the full moon, he wouldn't be able to put it on and he'd, like, die or something. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, we've got all these stupid pop movies coming out with freaking vampires and werewolves. Why hasn't anyone done that? I mean, that's kind of a fun idea.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? What's interesting is the classic conception of the vampire, the really old stuff.
Oh, yeah?
If you go back to before Dracula, it is, the vampire is... Okay, you know how the vampire is all these kind of silly old rules that normally get ignored? Like, they can't...
Like having to count rice or untie knots to cross water, stuff like that?
Yeah, and you can't... They won't go in a house unless they're invited.
Right, which I love that rule.
That's actually a pretty big one, because in the old days, the vampire was literally the fear that a dead person would come back to... would start moving around again, that they wouldn't stay dead. Have you ever seen like roadkill or a dead body and thought how scary it would be if they started moving again?
No, I've never thought that, but yeah.
So the original vampires, they were very disgusting. They're kind of bloated. They were obviously dead, you know?
They were more like zombies.
A bit, but they were intelligent. And here's the thing. They want to kill you, but they are... Imagine a loved one shows up again. They're obviously still dead, but they're talking and they want to be let back in the house.
That's awesome.
And they're asking you, let me back in. Let me back in.
That's awesome.
I'm your wife. I'm your mom, you know? And you're like, no, I buried you. I buried you a week ago. Let me in, please.
That's I love that version of that's a much more terrifying vampire than the one we got now. And, but it's a lot like our zombie, but intelligent, which is more terrifying.
It's like a shell of the person. Mm-hmm. They can talk, but there's nothing that made them left in there.
By the way, I'm back, everybody. I have survived my ordeal with hiccups.
Yeah, unless he's a vampire.
So now
so
he might have
cold
died
out here. Let me in, Zingallsartman.
You know how many weapons I have. I will straight up re-kill you. No, so okay, with that Legend of the Vampire, was it like don't worry, as long as you hit it with wood and keep garlic outside your house, they'll never come in? Was that like how the legend started?
Not really.
Or was it
this is how the whole...
was that for a later version of the vampire?
Here's how the whole stake thing started. I don't know where garlic came from, but the staking... Okay, so they had to reuse graves in the Middle Ages. You know, they'd bury someone for like a year or so, and then they'd dig them up again and put their bones in the crypt and bury someone else in their spot. That's the way they did things.
Practical.
And sometimes they would unbury someone and they wouldn't have rotted. Now, this can happen sometimes. Sometimes if a coffin's really airtight or if they're just in a good spot, decomposition is delayed. But they would dig these people up, and they seem perfectly preserved. In fact, they seem a little swollen, as if they've been feasting. So what they started doing, in order to make sure that, well, people started thinking that maybe they're coming back, maybe they're eating people, maybe if you're a really awful person, you'll come back as a vampire or something. So as a precaution, they would often cut off people's heads and put a stake through their hearts to nail them to the ground, so they physically could not get up. That's where the stake comes from. nail them to their
Mark,
grave.
just so you know, this is why I love you so much.
You're a pop culture guru.
No, this isn't pop culture.
This is the actual culture behind the pop culture.
Yeah, anyway, no, that's really interesting. And then, of course, Dracula came in.
Yeah, and Dracula, we haven't gotten quite to the modern sexy vampire. Dracula was hairy. He was large, like muscular.
Well, if you
I do
look
remember
at,
that.
He was...
If you look at like Victorian era erotic literature, a lot of it involved bodily hair.
Do you look at a lot of Victorian
I look
era?
at history. I enjoy history.
But yeah, Dracula was really pushed the more romanticized view of the vampire as an intelligent, cunning, immortal being.
Right.
Still a monster.
And somewhere in there, it became less of the undead and more of the immortal being, as you were saying.
Yeah, it's more like...
And it's actually really funny because I was trying to explain the undead. Well, I was trying to explain vampires as the undead to someone the other day, and because she could understand zombies, because they're mindless. That you can get that in there somewhere, but she just did not understand vampires, and I was trying to break it down. I'm like, well, they're dead, but they're not. They're undead. They're not alive, but they're not dead. And I was trying to explain it to her, and she was just not getting it. And I don't know how to explain it, to be completely honest. I ended up going, we'll talk about it later, and just changing the subject.
Yeah, it made a lot more sense in the older days. Though even in Dracula, has either of you read Dracula?
I've never actually read it.
Nope.
Okay, I've read it. At one point, one of the ladies in London becomes a vampire because Dracula feeds off her night after night, and then she dies. And her name's Lucy, her part is much closer to the original vampire legend because she was a really nice lady. She dies, they put her in a mausoleum, and then she just starts getting up again at night and sucking the blood of little kids. And it's very much like the person who used to be there is gone, but their body is walking around and doing these horrible things.
And intelligent still, right? She's still intelligent.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say she had a personality, is the thing.
Those things are just creepy.
I don't know. This kind of stuff freaking fascinates me.
And it's not interesting to make a TV series or a book these days about something
about a character.
Yeah, a character without personality, And I get that. I like modern vampires. I find some of the stories enjoyable. It's a little oversaturated right now, but... there's nothing wrong with that. But it's cool to figure out the roots.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a real issue with like Twilight and stuff. Like, those vampires weren't dead. I mean, they didn't feel dead, and that's one thing that I've always like they're freaking the undead.
Dead can't breed.
Exactly. He would never even be able to get a freaking boner. It's physically impossible.
Well, yeah, you're right. If his heart isn't beating, how could the blood?
Exactly.
That always bothered me.
Exactly.
Plot hole. Well, I read the Twilight books way before they became a big deal, just because I was reading.
Yeah, I did too. Actually, I read them right after
vampire
you did,
stuff.
You were like, these are actually decent. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I liked them. But I was willing to suspend disbelief on that, on all of this stuff, on the sparkling, on every little thing on that, because I had been reading a lot of vampire books, and every dang young adult writer of that period and now does their own friggin' take on vampires. And, they really work like this, and they really work like this. So Twilight was just one more weird vampire,
No, that's true. And I mean, like, I liked the first book, I think, and then they started to go downhill. I read all of them, and I mean, I enjoyed them enough to read all of them.
I read half of the first one,
as I do with hated the movies. I stopped watching the movies, and
they really aren't very good movies. Not.
But I don't know. It gets a pretty crappy rap. I mean, like you said,
it's
all of the young adult
to hate.
authors do that. But there are reasons people hate it, and they are legitimate reasons.
Twilight is a lot like George Lucas. Both are fashionable to hate. I would disagree. They deserve as much hate as they get. Not that they don't deserve any hate. Just
Right.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through a period where I was obsessed with zombies. I'm like, because that's a terrifying monster.
We actually made a zombie movie once.
We did.
The three of us plus a couple other people.
Yeah.
For a school class, which is, well, I'll post a link to it in the description.
Don't watch it.
To half of it.
Half of it, because I never re-edited the.
And I kept bothering you. I kept saying, "When are you gonna edit the second half? That's got the cool scenes in it." Until I finally.
The cool scene.
We filmed the whole freaking thing backwards.
Yeah, and I finally got a copy of all the footage from you, and I haven't done jack squat with it. I looked it over, and I realized why you hadn't edited it, except for that cool scene. Right? There's nothing there of value.
I know, right?
Okay, so I just remember that, like, a lot of it was dramatic, but then every once in a while we had, like, stupid, bad comedy.
Really? Like, apologize to Mel Brooks. Sorry, we called you cornball.
And I don't know, like, at the time it seemed like a great idea.
It was a fun experience to film it.
Man, and then
mostly,
yeah. I have three big memories in that film. One where I had to fake propose to the girl I actually liked at the time, and we had a really awkward history.
That was Sally, who I eventually ended up dating.
The second one was the scene where they're pretending to be zombies, and I was cooking a pizza in the kitchen. And so my view of the film, or of that part of the thing, was from like 100 feet away in a kitchen watching through a window. And I was kind of upset that everyone left me. And I was just in this giant kitchen by myself because it was at a camp. So they had the full on like cafeteria kitchen.
Huh.
And I was
just
cooking
realized?
this sad little pizza.
That scene had me with the girl that you liked at the time walking past a horde of zombies that included the girl that I liked at the time and the guy that liked her. The other guy that liked her.
And then there was Mark, who everyone loves and has never had drama.
You know, I may put together that final scene and just say, there, that was the end. No, nothing else happened in the second half.
Little biscuits.
They didn't need the phone or anything like that, or the stupid sneaking in.
It was kind of arbitrary.
Moving on with our lives. That last scene was pretty cool, though. I don't know.
We did like 5 takes.
2. We did 2 takes.
We did it all in one shot.
And that's because I was totally into like the one shot stuff at that point. I had like recently seen Children of Men, didn't even know that final shot ended up being a lie. It was still cool. So I wanted to replicate it.
That was fun though, because we made a butt ton of fake blood.
Oh gosh, we drenched you.
Oh yeah.
In that, I don't know our nickname for her, but Sally's brother, and then we had that dummy with like the caved in stomach and then the bucket of blood, and he was like, rah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We were really young.
You know, I ended up making another zombie movie in high school for my video tech class, and we just, at the end, we got so lazy. We were like, oh, you're a zombie? Here, take Smile. We're gonna drizzle fake blood. Just drink some fake blood and then spit it out of your mouth. There, you're a zombie now.
Gosh.
You can actually get away with
that. It's all corn syrup.
I don't know. I'll post a couple of our old horrible videos.
Let's make a new horrible video with
you. Remember when we were going to make that horror movie and we had it all scripted out? It was about...
Yes, and I had that really elaborate map made up with all the notes of the crazy person like all over it.
And I had my really, really tiny gravestones.
Oh my gosh, yes. So okay, we were planning on doing this horror movie, and in it there's a scene at a graveyard. And so I'm generally kind of the prop guy because I'm kind of craftsy, and I was talking with Neefu, and he's like, all right, and we were gonna do this right. We were gonna have every prop because there's always something we forgot or something. So we're working on the phone. We'd been on the phone for hours. We're working through everything. He's like, all right, we need gravestones. We need like, so many crosses. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to make some, but I've got a lot I have to make because I was doing a lot of the making. And so he was like, all right, I'm gonna make some too. And we'll meet up. So I made like one, and it was 2-foot cross or something like that.
And then the day of filming,
we get there and we're like, all right, time to set up the graveyard. Now, first off, there was 5 feet of snow.
That made things a little difficult.
So we were walking through 5 feet of snow to film, which is stupid. on every possible level. And so we get in there, and we're setting up the graveyard, and so we have to put the graves on top of the snow. And on this snowbank, it was a little shallower because it was under some trees, but it was still a couple feet deep. And he pulls out this black garbage bag and dumps out these like 5-inch tall wooden crosses made of
tiny,
twigs.
just itty bitty.
They were just. And so we set him up, and I'm going, what have you done? Like, what is going on? And we stand back and look at it, and so like our only thought is we have to film it like it's really far away.
Because it's a graveyard for squirrels.
That's what we called it. And that was the one. That was because we used to try to do the scrap all the time, and every time something went wrong. But that was the one time where the weather wanted to kill us.
I still have an image of Neefu.
It was horrible.
His up to his waist in snow in a big poofy director's jacket trying to direct.
I tried.
We were building trenches everywhere so we could freaking walk.
And then Sam, I can see you trying to dramatically act in 5 feet of snow, and you're just swimming in
No,
it.
here's the thing, though. Me acting is me trying to act, because I suck at acting. I've never claimed to be an actor.
And the thing is, I actually don't remember much of this. I actually had a conversation with one of my cousins recently about the fact that they have all these memories about me and things that I've done growing up that I have no recollection of whatsoever.
I'll delete something.
They were kind of teasing me lovingly about the fact that I'm just living in the moment.
Oh, I'm definitely the same way, where I live in the moment. I don't have a very good memory.
No, I can't remember a lot of. I mean, I remember some things, but I mean, it's got to be important to me for me to keep it in my mind.
In your mind palace.
In my mind palace. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts they would like to offer on this week's discussion?
Yeah, I want to know where garlic came from to keep vampires away.
Well, Google.
I don't know. I think it was just a general idea of the reason there's so many ways to keep a vampire away is that if some dead person started moving around again and you can't kill them, you gotta find up some way to stop them.
So what's in the kitchen?
So was it originally you would just pin them back into their coffin so they wouldn't be able to leave? Is that where the stabbing through the heart came?
You would wait till morning in the old ways. You'd wait till it's daylight, get a bunch of your friends, maybe a priest, dig the grave up with a suspected vampire, stake them to the ground, cut off their head, fill their mouth with communion wafers if you feel like it.
Go big or go home.
Bury them again and just pray that they didn't show up anymore.
Well, on that entirely depressing note about death,
stop tying my headphones.
I'm Mark Hamilton, and with me today. No, I'm Neefu.
By the way, the palace of my mind is an old country buffet.
That's the most wonderfully terrible place. I have the fondest memories of Old Country Buffet, but it just serves like the worst cafeteria food. That's all been warmed up in a microwave and then sitting on a freaking bench for 2 hours.
It is Disneyland if you are 10 years old and don't know what good food is.
I always wanted to go to Legoland, but I never did.
I went to Legoland, but I was too old.
Legoland was a disappointment.
Like, I was too low to appreciate it.
I went there. I was the right age.
It was so disappointing.
It's not that fun, even when you're the right age.
Let's just do a long episode.
Disneyland's better.
I'm not editing this thing. I'm sorry, guys. You guys chat and then dismiss. I have to go sit with it for another hour and listen to it.
All right. Well, Flurble Biscuits, everybody.
Well,
Kobolds and
Biscuits.
beer.
You know where to find us. You know where we are. Stitcher, Twitter, Facebooks. You got brains in your head.
Straight up Neefu, Zingallsartman, the Page Nebula. I don't know, cooldownttimer.com. Find us.
There'll be links and crap.
There's questions.
Make sure to nope, that's too dark. Not going there. Continue anyway.
The next podcast should be more coherent.
I think this one was pretty coherent. I mean,
it's either good news or bad news.
That's why.
Yay, hiccups. Yep.
This episode could just be called Mark and Zam Talk About the Undead.
Yeah, basically.
Mark
Okay,
and Zam
everybody.
Talk about vampires.
Your question of the week is zombies or vampires? Explain in 500 words or less.
What? Sure, why not?
BatSquatch or vampires?
500 words or less. Nicolas Cage, good or bad?
That's a good one. Yes. Hey, I get to say the freaking... That's my job. Yeah. No, I like the Nicolas Cage, good or bad, though it's not relevant at all. And then, sure, whatever. He can have this one. I introduced it. That's fair enough.
Nicolas Cage, good or bad? Cooldown timer, contact, podcast us.
Bye!
At
BatSquatch.
thechickennugget.com.
Squeedly
Goodbye, everybody.
pooch.